9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Laika the space dog was truly a pioneer in space exploration. In this video, we will discuss how she was the first living creature to orbit Earth and how she paved the way for future space exploration. Despite being a guinea pig for the Soviet Union's space program, Laika was a brave and loyal dog who faced the unknown with courage and grace. Her story will not be forgotten, and her legacy will live on forever as a reminder of the power of exploration and the strength of the canine spirit. In an effort to showcase its technological might and boost its international standing, the Soviet Union launched its space program in the late 1950s. At this period, the Soviet Union considered space exploration as a method to show the United States who was the boss during the height of the Cold War. The world's attention was riveted on the Soviet Union in 1957 when it launched its first satellite, Sputnik 1. This initiated a space race between the USSR and the USA. When put into the perspective of the Cold War, the successful launch of Sputnik 1 by the Soviet Union was considered as a huge propaganda victory. The United States became concerned about the Soviet Union's ability to launch items into orbit because of the potential military applications of such technology after this demonstration. In order to compete with the Soviet Union, the United States increased financing for its own space program and pushed forward at a faster speed. The 1957 Laika mission was an integral part of the Soviet Union's larger endeavor to establish its superiority in outer space. The mission was an important milestone in space travel since it proved the Soviet Union could launch a living organism into space. The operation was not devoid of political and ideological undertones, as it was utilized to forward the Soviet Union's superiority narrative in comparison to the United States. Little information about the mission's specifics was released to the public while it was underway. At first, the Soviet Union said that Laika had survived several days in orbit before passing away due to a lack of oxygen. However, overheating caused by a malfunction in the spacecraft's cooling system ultimately led to Laika's death just hours after liftoff. Overall, the Soviet space program and the Cold War context in which Laika's mission took place played a significant role in shaping the way the mission was conducted and perceived. The mission was not only a scientific achievement, but also a political and ideological statement. Laika was a stray dog of the mongrel or mutt breed, which refers to dogs that don't belong to a certain breed. She was discovered by Soviet scientists hunting for volunteers for a spaceflight project when she was frantically walking the streets of Moscow. She was picked because, despite her petite stature and placid demeanor, she was tough enough to survive on the streets. It's worth remembering that the Soviet space program frequently utilized stray dogs as test subjects due to their low cost and easy availability. The researchers behind the experiment reasoned that the strays would perform well in space since they had already demonstrated their resilience under adverse conditions. Laika went through a strenuous and intensive selection and training process before she was finally chosen for her assignment. The Soviet scientists in charge of the expedition wanted a small, mellow, and hardy canine that could survive the rigors of space travel. Gathering a group of strays from the streets of Moscow was the first step in the selection process. The canines were then tested to see which ones had the optimum combination of physical and behavioral traits for the job. After being chosen, Laika was put through rigorous preparation for her mission, including considerable training and conditioning. She went through drills meant to get her used to the cramped quarters of the spacecraft, the roar of the rocket engine, and the tremors of liftoff. She had to become used to the cramped conditions and jarring shocks of a launch in order to do her job. The training process for Laika included acclimating her to the confines of the space capsule in which she would spend her transit time. Aiming to simulate the spaceship as closely as possible, Laika was trained to spend longer and longer amounts of time inside the capsule. Using loudspeakers and mechanical vibrations, Laika was also prepared to endure the sounds and sensations she would experience during the actual launch. They did this so that she wouldn't get nervous before takeoff. Laika was not only physically prepared for space travel, but also conditioned to endure its harsh environment. To prepare her for the vacuum of space, she was taught to consume a high-nutrient, low-digestibility diet and was subjected to heavy doses of carbon dioxide. A collective effort from a group of researchers, veterinarians, and trainers was essential throughout Laika's selection and subsequent training. The mission was declared a failure since Laika passed away just hours after liftoff, despite the fact that she had been trained intensively to withstand the conditions of space travel. The technical aspects of Laika's mission were complex and challenging, as it was one of the first times that a living organism had been sent into orbit. The primary goal of the mission was to send Laika into orbit and then keep her alive for as long as possible.
Hold on to your seats as we shine the spotlight on our content's dynamic partner.
Made from 100% natural beef, slow roasted for irresistible flavor, nutrition, and long-lasting enjoyment. Introducing Real Bully Sticks. Get yours today and give your dog the experience they deserve.
The spacecraft that was used for the mission was called Sputnik 2. It was a small capsule that was designed to carry Laika and her life support systems into orbit. The capsule was equipped with a heating system to keep Laika warm, as well as a supply of oxygen and water. The capsule was also equipped with a number of sensors to monitor Laika's vital signs, such as her heart rate, breathing, and temperature. One of the main challenges of the mission was keeping Laika alive in the harsh conditions of space. The spacecraft was not equipped with a re-entry system, meaning it would not return to Earth, and Laika was not expected to survive the flight. The spacecraft was not designed to sustain life for long periods of time, and the Soviet scientists were aware that Laika would likely die within a few days of the launch. The lack of a re-entry system also meant that there was no way to retrieve Laika's body or the data collected from her vital signs after the mission, which made it difficult to understand the effects of space travel on living organisms and how to prevent them. Another challenge was the lack of control over the spacecraft's temperature. The heating system on the capsule failed, and the temperature inside the capsule rose to dangerous levels, causing Laika's death within a few hours of the launch. In conclusion, the technical aspects of Laika's mission were challenging and complex, as it was one of the first attempts to send a living organism into orbit. The main goal of the mission was to send Laika into orbit and keep her alive for as long as possible. However, the lack of proper technology and understanding of the effects of space on living organisms made it impossible to achieve. The success of Laika's mission was celebrated as a milestone for the Soviet Union's space program. This marked a major advancement in space travel because it proved the Soviet Union could launch a living organism into space. A month after the United States launched its first satellite, Explorer 1, the mission was also utilized to promote the idea of Soviet Union dominance over the United States. Although the mission was successful in some ways, it also had negative consequences for the Soviet space program. The Soviet Union's initial claim that Laika had survived for several days in orbit before she died within hours of launch due to a breakdown in the spacecraft's cooling system was a big embarrassment. The incident prompted discussions regarding the morality of employing human and animal subjects in space operations. Laika's mission was a huge success for space travel. The experiment was groundbreaking because it was one of the first occasions that a living thing had been transported into orbit, and it helped scientists learn more about how spaceflight affects animals and plants. Additionally, the expedition proved the viability of utilizing animals as test subjects in space research, which paves the way for future manned flights. Overall, Laika's mission was a significant achievement for the Soviet space program and for space exploration in general, but it also served as a reminder of the challenges and risks associated with space travel. Laika is remembered today through various monuments and tributes around the world. There is a memorial honoring Laika in Russia's Moscow State University of Electronics and Mathematics, which had a role in the Soviet Union's space program. This memorial features a bronze statue of Laika within a miniature Sputnik 2 spacecraft. A statue of Laika was erected in a park in Volgograd, Russia, in 2008. The statue of Laika, sculpted in stainless steel, features her seated atop a globe of the world. There are several literary, cinematic, and musical works that pay homage to Laika, in addition to the monuments. The narrative of Laika's life and mission was told in a children's book titled Laika in 2007, and a documentary film titled Laika, the First Animal in Space, was released in 2010. Many musical works have been inspired by the Laika, including Laika by the Kinks and Laika by the Russian group Zveri. The study of space medicine, animal welfare, and ethics in space exploration all continue today because of Laika. Her work was a pivotal moment in the growing awareness of the moral consequences of utilizing living organisms as test subjects in the scientific community. As a whole, Laika's mission and sacrifice are commemorated by a number of memorials and tributes, and her influence can be felt in the fields of space medicine, animal welfare, and space exploration ethics to this day. The lessons from Laika's voyage are still being used to inform the development of new spacecraft and the selection of animals and humans for spaceflight. Animals are being used less and less in space studies as researchers shift their attention to computer simulations and actual astronauts. The historical and technological advancements made possible by Laika's story are crucial to the development of space travel. Her expedition highlighted the difficulties and perils of spaceflight, as well as the ethical considerations that must be made while embarking on such an endeavor. Lessons learned from her journey are still being used to improve spaceship architecture and the selection of animals and humans for spaceflight. Thus, her impact on space exploration is far from over. Today, space medicine, animal welfare, and ethics research continue to honor Laika. Her mission made people realize the importance of animal welfare in scientific study and the morality of employing live organisms as test subjects. Laika carved a daring new path through space. She showed tremendous courage and fortitude and will always be a representation of adventure, the fighter spirit, and animal rights. Laika will forever represent the inquisitive and lively nature of dogs everywhere. Stay tuned for more amazing stories and share the bold stories of your dogs in the comment section below. Don't forget to check out our previous videos, and if you want to support us, subscribe and order some real bully treats for your little buddy and support the channel.